Asia Wilson's just a big bully. Look at this. Throws Lexi Hull on the ground. Everything she does is illegal. Look at this one. A moving screen and then pushes Lexi Hull. You think they ever call a foul on Asia Wilson?
The Las Vegas Aces opened the game with elbows, flops, and every cheap shot in the book. But the Indiana Fever didn't blink. Every time Aya Wilson tried to bully, every time Vegas tried to impose, Indiana answered with speed, grit, and relentless fight. What the Aces thought was intimidation quickly unraveled into desperation. And then Kelsey Mitchell took over, burying dagger after dagger, silencing the crowd and turning the scoreboard into pure payback. This wasn't just a win. It was a statement. The Fever flipped Vegas's arrogance on its head and exposed their dirty play for what it was. And as for Lexi Hull, after enduring most of IRS rough tactics, you have to wonder what was going through her mind when she stood tall through it all. Fever fans, drop a comment to show your support for a team that refuses to back down no matter the adversity. Let's go Fever.
It was supposed to be a night all about Asia Wilson's legacy. She made history before the ball even tipped, but the game that followed reminded the Aces how tough this playoff run will be.
The Indiana Fever have pulled off the upset, the 6th seed, beating Vegas 89-73 to take game.
Hours before tip-off in Las Vegas, all eyes were on Aya Wilson as she hoisted her MVP trophy. The stage was set for a celebration, a message to the league that this was the Aces' time, their series, their crown to protect. But when the final buzzer sounded, that glittering moment felt less like triumph and more like distraction. The shine of the trophy faded fast once the ball went up, because everything Vegas expected to come easy suddenly became a fight they weren't ready for.
Asia Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces lose Game 1 on their home court to the Indiana Fever, 89-73. The Indiana Fever were in control of this game from start to finish. There was a small little patch there in the third quarter. We started saying, are the Aces gonna come back? But Kelsey Mitchell and Odyssey Sims said, no, they're not going to come back. Not at all.
Heading in, the Aces wore the label of heavy favorites. The chatter around the league painted Indiana as little more than a footnote, a team lucky just to share the court. That script was written before the Fever even stepped out of the locker room. Vegas had the pedigree, defending champions, loaded with star power, riding their streak. Indiana? They came in battered with 6 players sidelined. Caitlin Clark was out. Sophie Cunningham was out. Sydney Colson was out. And the injury list kept going. To most experts, this matchup wasn't just lopsided, it was already over. And that smug certainty bled straight from the media into the Vegas bench. Becky Hammon herself had gone on record, reminding everyone that Indiana hadn't even seen the real Aces yet. The message was loud and clear. This was supposed to be Vegas's statement game.
Just referenced it twice. It is Indiana. Dropped 2 of the 3 games to them this year, but you haven't seen them since late July. What excites you about that matchup?
That they haven't seen the real Aces yet. They caught us when we were a bit in turmoil. Not only that, they whooped us one of those stretches. So, you know what? We'll buckle in, hone in where we can, and take care of business.
While Vegas soaked in all the pregame hype, the Fever were brushed off like a footnote. You could hear it in the tone of the analysts. Indiana wasn't a contender, just another checkpoint on the Aces' march to another title. And honestly, that was the perfect setup for the Fever. When no one expects you to win, the weight comes off. The pressure disappears. You play loose, fearless, free. And from the moment the ball was tossed in the air, Indiana's freedom was on full display.
The Fever crashed the party. Kelsey Mitchell dropped a playoff career-high 34 points to spoil the night with an 89-73 win.
In the second half, I just felt like our physicality and our pursuit was not there. Like we died on screens. You have to have second and third efforts. Even if you know you might be beat, you still have to try hard to get back into the play. And I don't think we tried hard in that category.
Instead of folding under the noise, Indiana came out swinging with pace. The ball zipped, the shots fell, and suddenly the mighty Aces, with all their swagger, looked a half step behind. The pressure flipped in an instant. It wasn't the short-handed Fever gasping for air. It was the two-time champs scrambling in a fight they never saw coming. And funny thing about arrogance, it starts to look a lot like panic when the underdog won't go away. Be the final horn. The story everyone dismissed had become the headline. 72% of teams that take Game 1 in a best-of-5 go on to win the series. That so-called upset didn't just shake the math, it rewrote it. And on their own floor, the Aces weren't just beaten. They were rattled, frustrated, and exposed.
If you better not blank on the mission, bitch, you might get ranked. Shot back. Let it go. Right, go. Put it, bang, fly for burn. Somebody. Die. You don't want to fight no hitter? No. Nigga, I'ma shoot you in the fight.
The second Indiana refused to break, everything shifted. The tone of the game flipped. Suddenly, the Aces weren't playing championship basketball anymore. They were grasping for something uglier. You could see it instantly. Instead of trusting their system, their pace, their rhythm, they slipped into shoves, trash talk, and desperation. What began as a coronation of dominance unraveled into the league's top team clawing for shortcuts.
See, Hall was getting pushed all game. Look at that. Like elbowed, pushed, but guess who fell? That's an illegal screen. She leans into Lexi Hall, pushes her. Look at this. Pushes Lexi Hall down. Like, I can't take this crap. I'm sick of watching it over and over. That's a moving screen, and then pushes her again. Look at that. You can't do that. They didn't call any. This is the only one they called a foul. She straight pushed Kelsey Mitchell into Asia.
Aya Wilson set the tone in the worst possible way. Instead of showcasing her MVP skill, she tried to bully her way through the game, and not in the kind of physical play that wins championships. She swung elbows off the ball, leaned into bodies after whistles, and twice in transition shoved players with no intention of making a defensive stop. The flops were just as blatant, collapsing like she'd been steamrolled when the replay showed nothing more than routine contact. At one point, she even hooked an opponent's arm on a rebound, then launched herself to the floor as if she'd been fouled. It didn't look like dominance, it looked like desperation. Those antics weren't about competing. They were about grasping for control she never truly had.
This pathetic foul to start the game off with, but ball never lies. I love when karma happens. Yeah, miss your free throw. And then here we go. Check this out. A foul. Look at this one. She swings her elbows on Powers. And Powers just holding her ground, but it's a foul. Let's go through this. This is Asia Wilson. I'm so big and bad. No, you didn't get touched. It wasn't that cool. You made a layup.
And the Aces fell right in line behind her. Jackie Young started throwing her weight around on screens, delivering hits that looked more like football blocks than basketball cuts. Away from the ball, players were blindsided by hips and shoulders they never saw coming, all disguised as physical play. The tactics dragged the game into a slog, but Indiana didn't flinch. If anything, the Fever leaned into the chaos, smiling through it, sharpening their execution, and playing even freer as Vegas tried to drag them down.
And Aaliyah Boston swings her elbows around and makes a shot, but no, she can't do it. She's a Fever. An Indiana Fever. She said, that's a flop. That's what Caitlin said. Here we go. Asia Wilson. Look at her trying to flop to get a call. Nobody touch you. And this is the biggest bullcrap of the game. So Kelsey Mitchell goes in for a layup. Asia Wilson shows them their lip, so they review it. Ever see an Indiana Fever player get a review when they're called for a foul and they zoom in with a microscope and call it technical? They called it technical on Kelsey.
Every hard foul only seemed to spark Indiana's fire. Instead of rattling, Kelsey Mitchell called for the ball even more, attacking with purpose. Odyssey Sims cranked up her defense, pressing tighter, refusing to give an inch. In the paint, Natasha Howard and Brianna Turner absorbed every shove and answered with discipline, holding their ground, standing firm, never taking the bait. What Vegas thought would break the Fever only charged them up. The cheap shots became fuel, igniting a roster already burning from being dismissed before the game even began.
Wilson, look at that foul they called for. Yeah, saved her. That's some bullcrap. I love Aaliyah Boston. Great job today playing defense. Look at that. Another foul. Bailed out by the refs. I get pissed off. This is the worst one. They call this a jump ball. How is that a jump ball? Nobody even had possession. Aaliyah Boston, that's anything is over the back. Not a jump ball.
That's the irony. The Aces, led by the league's newly crowned MVP, were supposed to look poised when the lights burned brightest. Instead, they cracked. What should have been composure turned into playground antics. Every shove, every flop, every frustrated push was an admission. They couldn't win this game straight up. Indiana's resilience had stripped their swagger bare. And while Vegas unraveled in frustration, the Fever's stars seized the moment. Once it became clear Indiana wasn't folding, the Aces ditched basketball for a wrestling match. Shoves in the lane, bodies crashing, flops so obvious the whole arena rolled its eyes. That became their game plan the second the scoreboard slipped away. But Indiana didn't shrink from it. They fed on it. Missing 6 teammates, they played with the urgency of a roster where someone had to rise. Every cheap shot gave them more fuel. Every Vegas misstep only fanned the flames. And by the end, it wasn't Vegas's night of celebration. It was Indiana's night of fire.
Money Mitch, put him in a ditch! Who on the Las Vegas Aces is going to try to stop Kelsey Mitchell? Because from what I just saw, they had no answer for her. Kirsten Bell, line right up, smacked. Jackie Young, step right up, torched. Chelsea Gray, torched. Jewel Lloyd, torched. Nobody could hang with Kelsey Mitchell as she goes off.
Kelsey Mitchell delivered the sharpest response to Vegas's antics. She torched them for 34 points, barely missing, carving up their defense no matter how physical the game got. The Aces could shove her after a drive, bark at her between whistles, but none of it mattered. She just kept drilling daggers. Every jumper was a reminder. Vegas might win the scrums after the whistle, but they couldn't touch her where it counted. For all the MVP trophies and banners hanging in the Aces' rafters, not one of their stars could match the offensive masterpiece Mitchell put on that night.